loophole.
Right.
I'm all about loopholes.
It's not a loophole, it's a process. But.
It's a process. Yeah, it's a process, not a loophole. Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. You know, a lot of people get fired up and upset about the tax code, right? Well, why is this person paying more tax than this person? Or why does this person have a higher tax rate than that person? Or, you know, Warren Buffett, who's like one of my top 5 hated public figures. I can tell you about that later, maybe why. He'll famously say like, oh, why is my secretary charged at a higher tax rate than I am? You know, and everybody has their complaint about the tax system. But if you just take a step back and you look from the 30,000 foot view, it's like the tax code is just an incentive structure for what the government wants to accomplish, right? Yeah. So it's like the government can't go build all the new housing, but they can give you a big tax break if you build housing, or the government, as much as they're trying to employ everybody, they can't actually employ everybody. So they give you tax credits for employing people. So in my mind, it's like, if you just understand it's a big game of incentive structures from the government saying we want private industry and private capital to take care of the stuff, you're like, well, I might disagree, but at least I understand the game. Yeah. Is that a fair statement, or am I naive, or where would you push back on that commentary?
I think it's a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
Like, you have the basic level understanding of like, it's my money, why do you want it?
Right. Right. Yeah, it pisses me off too. Like, I think taxation is theft. I'm a libertarian. I've got the yellow hat that says taxation is theft. I'm totally in the libertarian camp. And if I don't want to slit my own wrists and just be miserable every day, I kind of have to take a step back and be like, all right, well, maybe the government is trying to use taxation to motivate behavior for a better good. That, you know, maybe. I don't know.
This is so funny. I've been drinking a little bit. I just came from an office party, but I try not to laugh too hard in the mic. But I literally just had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and this guy is one of my best friends and super successful. He just started a pool cleaning company. Shout out to Pool Bros. And not to talk numbers, but he had a pretty good year. You know, he had to make a large investment to buy the pool routes and then to actually hire people to do the route running and stuff like that. And I've actually done some training with him. I think it's pretty cool because it says in chemicals and understanding the chemical balance of the pool. Like, it's just not water, right? It's like there's something going on there. This thing holds on to that. Chlorine actually takes the thing out of it. It's a lot of complicated stuff going on in there. But it's funny, he had a very successful year, and now I'm explaining to him the tax code. He's like, okay, I got all my numbers done. This is how much money's in my bank account. I want to know how much of it is mine, right?
Right.
So when I explained to him that, you know, whatever his tax bracket is, let's say it's 22%. And then if he's self-employed, he actually has to pay 15.3% Social Security and Medicare tax.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's just say it's $100,000, just to make the number simple. That's $22,000 in federal income taxes. And then that's $15,000 in Social Security and Medicare. So that's a lot of taxes from $100,000. If you had $100,000 in your bank account, let's say you didn't spend any money in your home or anything like that, and all the money from the business was there, that's a large portion or chunk to be paying, you know, over $30,000, 30% of your earnings, right?
Yeah.
So it's, when I explained this to him, he's like, whoa. You know, because like, especially when you're in these situations, you're not a W-2 employee, they're withholding it for you, where your paycheck is your paycheck, whatever you get is what you get, and you're like, okay, cool, this is my paycheck. But when you're making it yourself, and now you have estimated tax payments and different things of that nature, and maybe you have to pay a lump sum at the end, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize.
Right.
You know? So it's just funny. So that's to explain that mentality. There are people out there is like, this is my money. I worked hard for this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But to get some pushback on it, 100%. It's an incentivized program. What jumps to mind is monopoly, right? Why is it 200 when you pass go, right? It's incentive to keep rolling.
Right? Yeah, you got to keep moving. The money has to keep moving, right?
Yeah, so, you know, it's like, don't worry, you'll get past going a little bit, right? So, but the tax code is that, where it's, if you know how to use it, to talk to that experience, I forgot, maybe Warren Buffett you mentioned, why is he paying more than the secretary? We live in a very, even though tax rates might be high, and they don't have to be particularly this high, I'm not budgeting for us, so they know what their budget are, but the thing is that we live in a very fair tax system, in my opinion. You know, shout out to Donald Trump. He actually changed the tax code, made it a lot simpler. Most people used to have to itemize deductions and write off all these things off personally just to get a tax write-off. He raised the standard deduction so high, $12,000 for personal, and I think it's like $25,000 for a married filing jointly couple. So generally speaking, if you're making under that income, you don't even have to pay taxes at all. So you're within the kind of poverty line limits, or what our country would call that, and you don't have to pay no taxes on that whatsoever. And we live in a perpetual system, so meaning that every tier of income you make new tax bracket, it doesn't tax all of your income at that rate. So the first, 12,000 is 0 rate, and maybe the next 30,000 might be at 15%, right? Or let's call it 22%. And then you go up from that, maybe another 50,000. That percentage is going to be at 22%, 24%. And then if you jump all the way to maybe 160,000, now you're in the 32%. So and when you're in the 32%, again, just that last 100,000 is taxed at 32%. So as you increase in income, you're technically going to have only that tier of income attached to a new higher percent. It's not the total number. Right. So it's actually only taxing people that go higher.
Right.
So that's a misconception completely. That
this has to be one of the number one things Americans are ignorant on. Yeah. Like, I formerly lived in the state of California. So if you're at like 39%, 41% federal tax rate and 10% state tax rate, the correct answer is yes. At some point, they do get 50% of every dollar you make, but that's only 50 cents on every dollar that you make, like over $1 million. The first $1 million is taxed at a much lower rate, or whatever, the tax stratifications are. But most people don't think that. They think all the way back to $1, you're losing 50%, which, that's what I want people to think so that they vote for lower taxes, but that's not actually the truth.
Exactly. And I think that's probably the biggest misconception. And when you explain that to people, they're like, okay, because now that's where we come in as a tax advisor. I can make, so do you want to invest this much into your 401k is going to drop your income tax, or if you take this much out of your retirement account, it's going to bring your income tax. You could stop right at the level before you go into that new bracket if you have that type of control, right? So it is a system, and I think it gets a lot of critique. That being said, the problem comes in, and it's like a 3-part, right? So no, don't tax me at all. It's a really fair system, and then now the problem comes in with loopholes, and it's almost like the law, right? The law is just trying to keep up with humans in reality.
Right.
So
Good luck.
They can't write this fast enough, right?
Right. Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. When it comes to taxation, where do you, and maybe you have an example of this, like we'll just take a hypothetical business owner, right? Somebody owns their own widget manufacturing company. Where is the, oh yeah, this is definitely in the letter of the law. This is a loophole. This is definitely the gray area. You better be ready to defend this in an audit versus like, no, bro, this is just fraud. We can't do this, right? It's like I'm thinking, let me give you an example. I'm thinking of this financial planner that I know, and he was wildly successful financial planner, but he also wholesaled products, right? So it's like, not only did he have his own book of financial planning clients, he was like an authorized representative for a mutual fund company, and he would go out and he would get other financial planners to basically use that investment product, right? So he was constantly out whining and dining and golfing. And I know for a fact, I won't say what company he worked for. I know for a fact he got audited. And one of the things that came up was all the strip clubs that he wrote off. And he's like, look, man, that's
what my clients like.
Yeah, this is my business development. I take a bunch of rich financial planners out for dinner, golf, drinks, cigars, strip clubs. And the next day I show them such a good time, they sign on the contract to be an exclusive vendor of XYZ mutual fund company. Yeah. That is a effing business expense.
100%.
And okay, you said 100%, but like I think a lot of tax preparers would be like, "Oh no, I'm not playing that game." Like, you can't write that off. That's not a branded t-shirt. That's not office supplies. That's like, that's like Little Darlings on Las Vegas Boulevard. That doesn't qualify. So maybe you can pick a few examples and just walk us through like, "Hey, this is totally cool. This is loophole gray area. And this is like, no way, I'm not losing my license or going to jail as your tax professional for this bullshit."
I'll try to cap on those because those are really good points. I was laughing as you're like breaking down the different sections because you run into each one all the time as a tax professional, right? Or even like I'm sure in your field where someone is coming and they have like a lot of income, but they can't really show where it's coming from or something like that, right? So
this is my favorite. I'll give you my normal example. Hey Scott, I want to buy a house. Okay, cool. What do you want to buy? $1.5 million house. Okay, cool. How much you putting down? 20%. Okay, cool. So you got $300,000 down for your $1.5 million. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, what do you do for a living? Oh, I direct commercials. I have a exclusive contract with Lexus and Honda, and I do all of their high-end commercials. So I'm a commercial director. I'm like, cool. You're not a videographer, an editor. You have no equipment. No, just me. I just show up. I direct the commercial. Okay, cool. So you basically have no overhead. How much did you make last year? I made about $600,000. Okay, cool. Send me over your tax returns. I get their tax returns where their corporation says top line number, 600,000, salary to officer, 36,000, because that's kind of the minimum the IRS says you have to pay yourself to like you're an employee. And then write off, net income, $28,000. So then I got to call the client. I'm like, hey, you got $36,000 in salary. You got $28,000, quote unquote, from your corporation on net profit. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm not judging you. I hate the IRS just like everybody else. But what you're telling the IRS is that in order to make $600,000, you had $540,000 of expenses. And my underwriter has to look at that and say, oh, all he's got left over for his mortgage is $60,000 a year. You don't qualify for shit. And then they're mad at me.
At least not in the range they're talking about.
Yeah, it's like they're mad at me. And I'm like, hey, it's not my fault, dude. Based on your tax returns, you qualify to buy like a Honda Accord. That's about it. You don't qualify for a house. And I'm the bad guy that has to give them the reality check on what it is for all the mortgage fraud or the tax fraud that they've been committing. Because I'm like, okay, I get it. Maybe you write off your cable bill. Maybe you write off that. There's some things as an entertainment person or as a director you could write off.
You appreciate it.
Yeah, you could depreciate, but come on, bro. You don't have $550,000 of expenses on $600,000 of income, or else that business would cease to exist. Yeah. So yeah, those are my experiences as a loan officer, and it drives me bonkers. So
no, it's 100% right.
Tell me where you play, and you're like, come on, man.
Yeah, just to jump off that really quickly, it's like the idea of that. This happens all the time, same, right? And I can only tell when someone is bullshitting when they say, I want to buy a house. How much do I need to report?
Right.
That's the biggest red flag, right? It's like, I don't think I can even work with you at this point.
Right.
You might want to go somewhere else.
Totally.
But people don't understand that balance, right? Not paying Uncle Sam all of your check and then still being able to report because all the banking systems are using Uncle Sam's reports, which is tax returns and things of that nature. It's like, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million in your bank account, unless you're buying it cash. You need $100,000 in a loan. You still need to show that you have that income to do that last part. They don't care if you made $1 million or have $1 million in your bank account, right?
Yeah.
Can you finish paying off this loan, right?
You know, the Pentagon can fail their budget and not be able to account for $5 billion. But if you Venmo somebody more than $600, you better be able to account for it. So can you explain this Venmo meme and also explain, like, you know, obviously I pay Chris tens of thousands of dollars a year for marketing activities and graphics and podcasts and assistant in the coaching.
No, you don't.
So I have to issue him a 1099. But then it's like, if you pay a corporation, you don't have to issue them a 1099. Can you explain a little bit like this Venmo thing, where they really are or are not trying to find you for $600 I gave my 21-year-old kid for books?
Those are two really good points separated, like the Venmo 600 and then the S corporation. So I can tell you also know your stuff. So this is really in-depth stuff. So let's just try to make it simple. The Venmo thing, I think, happened recently, right? And this is more like, this is unrealistic. I don't think the government currently has the system to do it. When they do come up with this new coin they're coming out, maybe the cryptocurrency, they're trying to, supposedly, I mean, I'm hearing stuff on the internet, there's nothing official, right? I only get it after it's official. That's when I become an expert and I can go read it. So when things are just ideas in Congress and they're voting about it. So I know there's a new currency coming up for America that they're trying to make it digital. And supposedly when America stops using 60% of we're close to like 50 right now, but supposedly when like it's like 60% non-cash, they're going to introduce this thing. So people are still using cash and it's kind of slowing it down because they don't want to like circumvent or cut off the economy by saying this is the new wave. So I think what I've heard, and this is not a tax expert, this is like internet rumors because there's no information on it.
This is tinfoil hash.
Yeah, this is like exactly. So they're waiting for like 60% of credit card users versus cash use. And then they're going to be able to introduce this because everyone is already digital. And at that point, they probably will have the ability to track every transaction because there won't be any Zelle anymore or anything like that. The government will be the one. This government system that you sign up for will be the one controlling all the transfers and knowing that you're Joe Smo and who you are, right? And you probably won't be able to access it without that. So it's almost like, I forgot the country. I think I don't want to name a country, but it's a country in Africa. They tried to stop cryptocurrency by saying they can only go through a bank, right? And that's how they say you got to go create a bank account and this, that, third. But that's it goes against cryptocurrency because the entry to barrier is no entry to barrier. You can go to a store with cash and buy some.
Right.
But now to have a bank account, you might need ID and this, that, third. So it kind of slows down money transferring. This freedom of flow is what cryptocurrency is or electric money is becoming. So that whole thing, I think that's in the pipeline, and they're putting it out there, and there's no real way to track it right now. But eventually, yes, it sounds like let me just say this, right? I had a person that I used to work with, and it was like yellow flag, right? We call it red flag, yellow flag, green. And she wanted to report her money, but she was a stripper, right? Or at least that's what she told me. I didn't know exactly what she did, but she had large amounts of money that she wanted to report, and she was reporting
probably so she could get a home loan.
Exactly. So her mortgage told her, I know you have a lot of cash, but your tax returns, you need at least 2 years, right? So she came to me to report the income. I'm not in a position to really audit her. I'm just saying, and the IRS is not really auditing you for income, right? Unless you are going through like a payment system where if you're just the honest truth is if you're dealing with cash, and that's why so many businesses we'll give you a discount for cash,
right?
Because they know it's hard for the IRS to track it, right? For those people that are trying to avoid that. But she's technically receiving dollar tips every day at the end, and maybe technically, I think the strip club is supposed to be writing down how much the tips are and potentially giving her W-2. Unrealistic.
Yeah, that not happening.
Everyone's drunk at the end of the night. Is like, how much you got? That's your money, right?
Yeah.
So, but she wants to report hers, and so she started reporting large amounts of cash. So the IRS is probably not going to come and audit her and say, you reported $80,000 last year in being a stripper or a performer, dancer, right? You didn't get a 1099, right? There's no paperwork associated with this, but they're not going to probably audit her in her income. What they might audit her is her expenses, like, the lingerie or whatever else she's buying or doing to support that business. That's more likely where the IRS is coming after you. So it's almost like, don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
I know that's kind of a controversial topic,
right?
But for the military or whatever, but it's almost like that with the IRS. It's like we rather you report it, because if we actually find you with a large amount of money, say some other situation, like I heard about this guy, he had like $8 million in his house in the walls, right?
Right.
And now he had to prove where that money comes from. So they're saying, like, if we find you with all this money and you don't have receipts to show where you got them from, we're going to assume you're money laundering, and then there's going to be not criminal investigation on you and things of that nature. So they're saying, if you have the money and you don't have to tell us exactly where you're getting it from, we want you to report it. So no one's actually saying that, but they're trying to read in between the lines, because they're saying, if we find you with this money and no receipts, we're going to charge you for these things. Mm-hmm. So if you have this money, you might as well pay taxes on it. And then it's kind of a loophole where he reported that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we don't know where he got it, but he reported that.
Do you think we will get to a system either because digital currency comes into the system, or just tracking the financial dollars will become so ubiquitous and so easy because, everything's through Zelle, which is through Chase, and Chase has to report all the numbers to the government? Do you think we'll get to a point where, like, it's 2023, right? And I give my son, he's 21 years old. He has a full-time job. He's going to college. When he needs money for books or something, I'll Venmo him $500. Or when I have a really great month in the mortgage business, I'll Venmo him $1,000 and be like, hey man, I know you crashed your car. Here's some money to put towards savings. Do you think we'll get to a point where, like, in a few years, I'll get that little nasty gram from the IRS where it's like, we think your tax adjustment should be, or no, my son will get the nasty gram from the IRS where, like, we see that you got $2,600 in Venmo deposits this year. We have nowhere to track that. Your father didn't issue you a 1099, so we think you have $2,600 of additional earned income. You owe us $400 in taxes. Do you think we'll get there eventually?
100%.
Oh, I opt out. How can I opt? Can I just buy gold? If I was Ben Shapiro, this is where we would enter a commercial for gold, right? Like, buy gold. It's untraceable. But like,
and the value changes. Right?
And the value changes. Yeah. It's just like, I kind of want to, like, I just want to opt out of all this shit. Tell me a little bit why smart people like getting punched in the face, because I find that some of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners that I meet on the mat, contrary to probably what the stereotype would be, they're not like, walking orangutans who are just like, oh, I like to fight. Like we're not morons, right? Like you and I have seen so many people that they're not these meatheads. They're not like
me and you, for example.
Yeah. You and I, we are definitely not meatheads. Well, maybe we're meatheads, but we're not dumb meatheads. Yeah. Like I feel like jiu-jitsu, especially the super high level competitors, they're almost got like on the spectrum of autism, right? Because it's like they're like the Rain Man of violence. Yes. So why is it that mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu attracts, like, I would think, a more intellectual breed than maybe, I don't know, other combat sports or other athletic endeavors?
That's such a loaded question. I don't have the expertise to answer, but I'll try.
Okay, perfect. That's what this podcast is all about. Non-experts answering expert questions. And actually, Chris, we should put that in the bio on YouTube, like non-experts answering expert questions on the Edge podcast.
Right. On the Edge is such a good segue, right? Because I'm on the edge of, being a financial expert, and now I'm on the edge of, bashing faces in, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of funny. It's like,
you're so smart. You're going to go into the ring with an intention of knocking somebody unconscious. Like that's pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, the best analogy to go back to the IRS is that they have internal IRS agents and they carry a pistol. So you don't mess with your auditor.
No.
Because you can imagine they run into a lot of angry people. Hey, I'm here to audit you and you owe XYZ.
Yeah.
I'm getting my gun. I have one.
I was able to laugh at that, but the libertarian in me is like shrieking at the idea of like taxation at the end of a gun. Like my stomach is turning in ways that you don't even understand right now. Anyway, I digress. So tell me why smart people like getting punched in the face.
So, no, I think, it's honestly one of the most intricate, most beautiful things we have left in our society. And, especially like MMA, I think, as opposed to, jiu-jitsu definitely, because it's like jiu-jitsu is you're really here to learn. I'll get to the MMA part. Jiu-jitsu is like, I'm definitely here to learn. And the best part about jiu-jitsu that other sports don't have, the ability to tap. I think this is such an amazing thought form. Like whoever came up with the concept of jiu-jitsu and gave the ability to tap is just genius, because I can get as deep as I want into an awful submission where you're going to break my arm off, and I say that's enough.
Yeah.
And I learn how far my arm can go, right? And I can get out of it in a safe way. Most other sports, however, they don't have that. You're going to get beat up, and you need a ref to think you've gotten beat up too much to intervene. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it is this, but so jiu-jitsu builds this concept where it's like, I can train for 20 years, you could train for 20 years, and we meet and we still don't know who's going to win. The 20 years you trained are on completely different things than I trained on. And that combination of events that happen between us is so unique that it may never happen again. That particular role, there's some pathways that are very normal, right?
Right.
And I'm going to try to get, hopefully I don't take too much time talking here, but I have this concept called invisible jiu-jitsu. And it's the part of jiu-jitsu that you don't see, or that someone who's been doing it for 20 years will have to explain to you. Even after they do the move to you, you see them do it on someone else. If they didn't use words to express a certain part, like a squeeze or grip, you wouldn't really be able to finish or accomplish that move. So there's certain parts of jiu-jitsu that is beyond the comprehension that you can get through anything else. It literally is one of those things where you kind of need a sensei, right? So it's a very intellectual game where it's like there's certain understandings that someone watching an MMA fight, like I used to be that person, think I could do that. And then the more I learn and realize, I can't. Like I had to learn what this person's actually doing. This person just did 3 moves in a row and you thought he was just fighting, right? He did 3 distinct particular things. And if you watch multiple versions of his fight, you realize he's doing the same thing over and over again. So you realize there's an intelligence there. He's not just swinging for the fences, if you would, right? A good example would be like the Strickland Adesanya fight, where we're expecting Strickland to brawl like he normally does, right? And just because of that, we also thought he might win doing that. But then he goes in there and he becomes defensively sound. And that's the invisible jiu-jitsu. So it's like, how do you want to fight not throwing a punch? Most people can't even see what he's doing. He's slowly deflecting punches. I can't even articulate, but someone like maybe DC can break down move by move and say, this is how he's closing the space. This is what he's doing. Maybe he can't even articulate it to you yet, right?
Right.
But he's able to do something so intelligent that he's changing how people look at fighting. It's like, you don't have to be, well, he showed both sides, right? He's normally an aggressor, but he showed that you can stay close to the person that has the most dynamic weapons in the game, not throw a punch and let him tire himself out till he's backing up and he's afraid because you're too close. I got so close in your personal space, I can hurt you, but I haven't thrown anything. So you're in a panic state the entire time. So this is like intelligent, this is like fight knowledge, right? This is why in fighting, there's like 3 commentators, right? Because there's so many potentials happening that they need to debate and figure out what is going on in real time to tell the person that has no idea what's happening.
Right.
So there's this intricate knowledge that is in the fight game that is, let's call it free. It's like everything else, you kind of need a degree. Fighting is one of the things, a few things in this world that I can get better. I can be not technical, but I can get better at fighting, just fighting people. If I were just to spar with people, the top level, low level, different levels, something is going to click eventually where I'm like beating people up and I can't even explain what I'm doing. I just know he can't reach me and I can reach him, right? So the people that can actually articulate this information to the point that Joe Smo's like me and you can like pick it up. I'm a blue belt. I'm still a little low on the level.
Yeah, me too.
I like to say I'm a high level blue belt, which is the oxymoron. But, so it's
black belt in training, bro. You're a black belt
black belt in training, right? So, and again, to me, it's not even about the belt, right? So some of my moves are black belt level, right? So, everyone has expertise and things of that nature. So, but the point we're getting at is that there is a huge amount of intelligence here. It's like, I'm romanticizing it because for me, I like what works.
Right.
Let's put it that simple, right? Like the term they use in fighting a lot is high percentage, right? What combination is you're going to catch your opponent in 90% of the time? And like we're seeing in maybe 90% is a high threshold. My threshold is normally like 60% of the times. I'm more likely to get this off on you than you defend it. 60% of the times, I'm willing to take that battle every time.
Right.
In fighting, there's a lot of 50-50 positions, right? Where like dogfight, or there's just different positions where I'm arm dragging you and you can arm drag me back. Like you name it. There's a bunch of positions where it's like, I can win, you can win. Right. And then there's a bunch of positions where it's like, I'm on your back. You have to escape. You're no longer fighting me. I'm not really in danger of, it's almost like, not to bore people that are not into jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu starts standing. And then maybe you take someone down and maybe someone sits, right? And then you have to pass their guard, which is passing both their legs, right? And then the whole time the guy's trying to re-guard, right? He's trying to keep you in between his legs. So whether it's one leg in or two leg in, full guard, half guard, he's trying to keep you in his leg retention. Once you pass that, you're in half side control. And then now it's called control position. So even side control, you're still calling it re-guard. But for me, that's almost like an escape. Right? Even though it's not so much escape, but you can kind of submit people and do different things, buggy chokes and all these different things. But long story short, you're really trying to just sweep and or escape at that point. Same with full mount and back take. So from a back take to full mount to side control, there's a clear dominance going on. And that's when you stop going from a 50-50 position to now there's like a 60-40% onward where I'm more likely to submit you or do damage to you or whatever the case is. I'm winning, right? Gravity's on my side. So there's certain people that you don't want to get into their guard because all you can do from there is escape. Now he's both legs around me and I'm trying to escape this position right now. There's not too much I could do to him. So there's certain positions where you're trying to escape something versus where you're actually attacking or have the option to attack. And just putting yourself in more of these 60, 40 positions where you have the 60, or in recognizing when you're in a 40-60 position to get out of that position is just a big part of jiu-jitsu. So it's really a knowledge-based sports that is hard to express to someone that never did it. Right? Because it gets so intricate. In each position, you can write, there's hours and hours of tutorials of each position from different people around the world looking at the same thing a certain way. And sometimes you watch an hour tutorial and you follow everything he has to say. And then there's really only one part of it that's like, this is high percentage. If I can get this on someone, I'm winning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, those are the parts that you have to take out.